Okay, what we're going to look at is comparing box plots. When we have two box plots and they link, let's say something, then we can compare them and we can sort of decide certain things. We can maybe make assumptions or maybe make some guesses. So, looking at this as an example, this box plot shows the distribution of marks in an English test and in a maths test for a group of students. So we are comparing the same group of students but in two different tests. Okay, one's in English, one's a maths. So what I've done is I've put on the certain values here just to help us because the scale, it wouldn't be necessarily that easy to read up the way I've done it. Normally you'd get this on gridded paper and it would be pretty straightforward to find these values. So in the English mark, we've got a lower quartile of 24. We've got a median value of 35 and we've got an upper quartile of 45. In the maths mark, we've got a lower quartile of 20, a median mark of 25 and an upper quartile of 35. So it's asking us to compare the distributions of the two sets of marks. Now, when we compare distributions, what we want to do is we want to compare an average. And there's only one average we use in box plots, and that's the median. So they're always going to ask for they're always going to want two different comparisons. And the first one should always be the average that you use. So looking at these two box plots, the English mark has an average or a median average of 35, and the maths box plot has a median average of 25. So on average, using the median, the English mark is better than the maths mark. So that's the first point you need to put down. And this is how I recommend you write it. Always start by saying on average, because then it's clear you're using an average. Okay, so on average, the English mark or marks were better. And I would always put the numbers down. Okay, so as they have a higher median of 35, because the English marks have a median of 35, compared to maths of 25. Okay, so that's the first thing, but they will always look for a second one. Now we've looked at the averages. Okay, we could have looked at the quartiles as well, and we could have said, look, the upper quartile was bigger in English, the lower quartile was bigger in English. So we could have used all three of those and put them down, but I would always go straight for the average, which is the median. Okay, the second point is the distribution of these marks, the spread. How far spread out are they? And the best way to do that is to look at the range, not from the highest mark to the lowest mark, but from the interquartile range. And what that means, the interquartile range, we usually say IQR, interquartile range. Okay, it's the distance from the upper quartile to the lower quartile. Okay, or the other way around. So it's how spread out they are. So 45 take away 24 has an IQR of 21. 35 take away 20 has an IQR interquartile range of 15. So that means this interquartile range for maths is much smaller than that for English. Okay, so what that represents is actually that these marks are actually not spread out at all in compared to English. They're not as spread out as English. So that makes these marks much more consistent. So this class is much more consistent when doing a maths test than they are when they're doing an English test. So that's what I would write down. So maths marks were more consistent with an interquartile range of 15 compared to English, maybe I should have put a capital E, with an interquartile range of 21. Okay, although it's higher, it means they're more spread out, so they're not as consistent. They're all over the place. The smaller the interquartile range, the more consistent they are. Now, I've set you a few questions, and a couple of things you might want to remember is the median value in a distribution is the halfway point of the data. Okay, the upper quartile is the 3/4 way point of the data, and the lower quartile is the 1/4 way point of the data. So there's a couple of questions where that might come in really, really handy for you. Okay. Okay, I hope that helps. The key thing to remember when you are comparing distributions, okay, you need 2 points to compare them. One is always an average, and because we use the median, then we compare the medians. Whoever's got the highest, then on average, they do better, or they get more. The other one is about the spread. How spread out is the data? And generally, we use the interquartile range, which was the upper quartile take away the lower quartile. Okay, and you compare those. The one with the lower value is the one that's more consistent with their score or their marks or their value. Okay, right, off you go. Do your best, and I'll speak to you soon.